I'm joined by Richard Lawrence, author and UFO expert. Richard, nice to see you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for coming
Pleasure.
in. There's been some odd stuff going on over in America.
Yes.
And I haven't really talked about it. So I said to my producer, Aaron, today, I said, maybe we should do something on this because it's a story that interests people. But, you know, there's always a question that comes up, isn't it? You know,
it is.
Do you believe in UFOs? Is there life outside of our planet and all of that? But basically, the US government has been accused of concealing all sorts of evidence that UFOs in fact do exist. What's it all about?
Well, it's no surprise to me, I have to say. I've been on this for decades, campaigning for the truth to come out.
Right.
And I think it's an open secret, really, that there have been cover-ups. And not just in America. In fact, America, to give them credit, they're way ahead of the British government.
Yes.
And they do cooperate with the British government. That's on the record in the last few months on UFOs. By the way, they're trying to rename them UAPs. They now call them.
Oh, really? What does that stand for?
Unidentified aerial phenomena.
Really?
Instead of unidentified flying. It's just branding. It's trying to take people away.
This is the thing that happens now, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, let's rename it, and then that way
then they won't
so
think about
spooky,
it. Yeah.
People won't know what we're talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so ridiculous, isn't it?
It hasn't worked, because I noticed that all throughout the Congress meeting yesterday, which I watched the whole thing, they were talking about UFOs mainly.
Right. Well, we've got a clip,
UFOs.
actually. Let's have a look at this. This is former US intelligence official David Grusch saying under oath that aliens actually do exist.
Intelligent extraterrestrials.
Something I can't discuss in public setting.
Okay, I can't ask when you think this occurred. If you believe we have crashed craft, stated earlier, do we have the bodies of the pilots who piloted this craft?
As I've stated publicly already in my News Nation interview, biologics came with some of these recoveries,
Were they, I guess, human or non-human biologics?
Non-human, and that was the assessment of people with direct knowledge on the program I talked to that are currently still on the program.
And was this documentary evidence, this video, photos, eyewitness? Like, how would that be determined?
The specific documentation I would have to talk to you in a skiff about.
Gotcha. Okay, so, and you may or may not be able to answer my last question, and maybe we get into a skiff at the next hearing that we have, but who in the government, either what agency, sub-agency, what contractors, who should be called into the next hearing about UAPs, either in a public setting or even in a private setting? And you probably can't name names, but what agencies or organizations, contractors, et cetera, do we need to call in to get these questions answered, whether it's about funding, what programs are happening, and what's out there?
I can give you a specific cooperative and hostile witness list of specific individuals that were in those.
And how soon can we get that list?
I'm happy to provide that to you after the hearing.
Super, thank you.
So this guy, David Grusch, former US intelligence official, basically they're saying that yes, there are crashed UFOs, or UAPs, and yes, they had pilots in them which were not human.
Yes, or,
that's effectively what he said.
He was very definite about the crashed UFOs. They've been retrieved, and he even went back to the 1930s in Italy, where Mussolini had one, he said, and the Pope, after the defeat of Germany in Italy, gave it to the Americans. But he hasn't personally seen one, but he's virtually saying yes. We call
and he's
biologics.
also saying there's a list of people who know about it, and he's willing to pass that to this committee.
Yeah, because they talk about skiff in there, which is like going secret, classified. I mean, he's not allowed by law to go beyond a certain point. He's a highly qualified. In fact, he was in charge of investigating what they now call UAPs for the Pentagon. And he's also a very highly awarded pilot, former pilot in combat.
I mean, it's always interesting to me that America, as you say, seems a bit sort of way out ahead in something like this, because you would assume that every
it should be on the front page of every newspaper, by the way.
Well, you would also assume that every country...
well done for doing it.
But you should also assume, should you not, that every country would have evidence of UFOs in some way, shape or form. I used to talk to a guy called Nick Pope, who you probably know.
I know Nick. I spoke to him on his first day in the ministry.
Who used to work at the Ministry of Defence. And he became a sort of UFO analyst, I suppose, if you like, because they closed down that section of the Ministry of Defence, didn't they? So that we no longer look for UFOs then?
No, I mean, in my 20s, I was in touch with that ministry before Nick got there, and on his first day I said, do you believe in UFOs? He said, not particularly. I said, well, you will. And now it's his whole life, really, career. But yeah, the British government lagging behind, and they are very pathetic on the issue. Americans at least are coming out.
That's no surprise. They're pretty pathetic on most things.
So even though they have a thing called Five Eyes, which is Britain, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, and they are sharing UFO information with America, they just never want to talk. All the congressmen, and it was bipartisan.
Right.
In fact, I'm told that it's the only issue that is bipartisan in Congress right now.
I'm sure.
Were coming together, and they were all open. None of them were sort of ridiculing, laughing. The stigma's gone.
Right.
The skepticism isn't so much with UFOs, it's now with governments.
Well, you'd assume, since things like the Roswell incident as well, which was quite a long time ago, that technology, if there is to be other, forms of life in other planets or other solar systems, that their advanced technology would be like our advanced technology. Like we've now got drones that can fly around.
Well, exactly.
Which we didn't have in those, in the 20s and 30s. So presumably, if there are aliens, they're more advanced than they were in the 50s, say.
Well, yeah, and they said yesterday, another witness, a commander in the U.S. Navy, a Commodore, I should say. I mean, he was absolutely explicit that it's a physics beyond anything we have. The capabilities of these craft defy anything any government could produce, and China and Russia, by the way, both have programs going on. That's also come out, but they're not so open with their people. Not that America are very open with their people, but they moved up a step yesterday because they admitted UFOs exist a couple of years ago. Now they've admitted they're extraterrestrial, virtually.
And
in that.
Do they say, or is it possible?
Or some
to
of
say,
them are.
Is it possible to say where they're from?
They didn't, and he was only allowed to go so far. That particular witness. There was an interesting reference, though, at one point to quasi-dimensional intelligences, which takes us into almost like a metaphysical area.
Well, those are quasi-quartang dimensions. We don't want that back.
We don't want that one. But, multi-dimensional. So we could be looking, and when you look at dark matter, dark energy, if you get into that whole area, you're moving to a physics which possibly defies visibility.
Nobody really understands it. I mean, I'm sure scientists, scientists
well, they think that even they'll admit they don't really know what it is. They just know it's there.
Right. So have you studied this for most
decades.
of your adult life?
Yeah.
Have you seen a UFO?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Have you?
Yeah.
I mean, we haven't got loads of time, but tell us
well, the first one I saw, I was at university up in Hull.
Right.
And it was what they used to call then, and this is the 70s now, a cigar-shaped object.
Yes.
They could keep renaming. Do you remember the cigar shape? There was the flying saucer.
Yeah.
In fact, the organisation which I'm secretary of, way before my time in the 50s, I don't know if this shows on the screen at all. Should I go?
Just put it. Show it to that camera.
Oh, sorry.
There.
Okay.
That'll do.
And you'll see there, front
looks like
page
from the 50s.
flying saucers.
Yeah.
1950. That's the Ethereal Society, and that is what happened yesterday. Flying saucers are real. Flying saucers are friendly. Flying saucers are extraterrestrial. Your government knows this. So, to answer your question, I've been campaigning since I was at university, really, on this, and it's good to see progress, but they could go a lot further.
Yes. Well, I mean, I used to do a lot of overnight shows at TalkSport years ago, and we used to talk about this a lot, and people would ring in,
of course,
with all sorts of stories. And
phone lines go
people are fascinated by it. But listen, you've got a book, UFOs and the Extraterrestrial Message. Tell us about that.
That's a book I wrote really to put the whole thing in sync and go beyond just the UFO phenomenon and look at the contacts which have been claimed. Now, I'm not a believer in most claims, by the way, of contact. I think there are many people perhaps genuinely believe it, which I think are something else. Yeah. But I do believe there are some, and I put examples in there. One of them, by the way, and when this came out, I got it on the front page of The Sun at the time, was the equerry of the late Prince Philip.
Oh, yes.
And Air Marshal Sir Philip Horsley, and he met an alien.
Right.
That's what he told me, and I believe him.
Well, listen, it's fascinating. We must get you back, Richard. Thank you very much. Richard Lawrence, their author, UFO expert, because they are taking this pretty seriously in America, and I thought, once you hit the Independent Republic of Mike Graham, it's a serious story. So there we are.